Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Sumter County Council for Tuesday, June 14th to order. Let us all stand and please give us an invocation. Let us remain standing for the regular meeting.
Let's pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we do acknowledge you as the one in whom we live and move and have our being. We thank you for another opportunity to serve in the positions that you have appointed us to, and we thank you for everyone who is present and under the sound of my voice. We invite your presence and ask that you give us a mind to be fair and compassionate as we go through every line item that we have before us. Help us to realize that the earth is yours and the fullness thereof, and we are just glad to be good stewards of those things that you've blessed us with. Thank you for helping us to get through our budget and for being a provider of every good and perfect gift. We thank you for all things and ask that you be with us as we go through our meeting and then take us home safely to find our families well. Peace and all blessings we thank and ask in your name. Amen. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Let us all recite. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you.
Hello, young lady. How are you?
All right.
Doing great. Nice to see you. I'm going to present this to you for what you've done today. We all come. That's good. Nice. Take pictures.
U.S. Army veteran Phyllis D. Clark served our country from 1974 to 1976 during the Vietnam War era, assigned to the WAC Women Army Corps. She is retired from the Sumter School District and is a lifetime member of the Sumter SC Combat Veterans Group and a member of the Bethesda Missionary Baptist Church in Lynchburg, South Carolina. She is the widow of James Clark. She has 2 daughters, 1 son-in-law, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. She currently lives in County Council District 7. Thank you for your service.
Mrs. Brennan, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Move for approval. Second. Move to properly seconded that we approve our agenda for tonight's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Take a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting from Tuesday, May 24th, and the special meeting of County Council on Tuesday, May 24th. So moved. Then move to properly seconded that we approve the minutes for our regular meeting for Tuesday, May 24th, and the special meeting for Tuesday, May 24th as well. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? There are no land use matters tonight, so the next item on the agenda will be second reading of ordinance number 22976, after which there will be, before we take the vote, there will be public hearing. Mr. Mason.
Mr. Chair, council members, good evening. Ordinance number 22976, better known as the capital penny sales tax ordinance. At the last meeting, you received a very thorough report presentation by Mr. Bob Smith, chairman of our 6-member commission, where about 34 project areas were presented. In total, $266,500. There will also be proposed a $40 million bond. We've done the last two pennies, which would bring the total up to $117,266,500. Mr. Chairman, there have been no changes since first reading.
I'll now open the public hearing portion of the agenda for ordinance number 22976. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the ordinance, please proceed to the podium and state your name for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. What's the pleasure of council? Vote for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we have second reading on ordinance number 22976. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Item number 8 under new business is the presentation by Sumter School District concerning the 2022-2023 budget.
So good evening, Chairman McCain, Vice Chairman Byrd, members of the Sumter County Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. I'm standing here before you this evening with Jennifer Miller, who is our Chief of Finance for Sumter School District. And this evening we'd like to present to you the proposed general fund budget for the 2022-2023 school year. Before we get into the presentation, and I'll yield because Mrs. Miller, as the Chief Financial Officer, it is her responsibility to present the numbers to you, but I will present the opening and our why. But before I do that, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge several individuals who are here with us this evening. Let me first begin by acknowledging the presence of the Sumter School District trustees, those who are here with us this evening, and I'd like to thank them for their presence. I also want to take the opportunity to introduce a very important person. While I stand here presenting the 2022-2023 proposed budget, our superintendent for the upcoming school year is in attendance this evening as well. So Dr. Wright, would you please stand up and wave to the people? So Dr. William Wright, thank you for being here this evening. As with anything we do, we have established goals which will drive the work that we do each and every day for our children that attend Sumter School District. As you can see from the screen that's in front of you, the first goal is always about academic achievement for all of our children. When we look at academic achievement, it is inclusive of those students that we receive entering into pre-K and kindergarten, going all the way until their senior years or their final years of public education. The second goal is to focus on what we call school climate and culture. It's embracing every child and every educator and all support staff who we employ within the school district. And the third goal is the manner in which we operate our facilities, whether it's the schools or the district office. Those are the three primary areas of business that we will share with you this evening. 3 years ago, we came and we shared with you where we were in terms of staffing, because this budget that we're presenting to you is about people. It's about people and how we educate our children, whether it's teachers providing direct instruction, whether it's drivers who are transporting our children, whether it's food services who are preparing meals for our children. All employees are valued because they're important in the success of our children. When we came before, we proposed to you that moving forward, we would gradually ask for an increase so that we can support the staff that services our children. When we came before, we were looking to increase our staff by 87.5% by looking at teachers increase, special services increase, special services from our paraprofessionals, our school nurses, guidance counselors, mental health professionals, interventionists, custodians, as well as our media specialists. Now, this list does not change because it continues to increase, but as we are reeling from the impact and the effects of the pandemic, it is more important now that we provide services to our children as we reacclimate them or acclimate them back into the brick and mortar of our schools. When we're looking at the positions that were needed over a 3-year period, the total cost divided is divided by 3. Approximately $1.5 million each year would help satisfy the needs that we bring before you today in terms of our staffing. When we look at the fiscal year 2021, 29 positions, which were equivalent to 1.5 million when we look at that staff. Fiscal year 2022, we were looking to phase in 26 positions at a cost of, again, 1.5. We've tried to balance it out so that it is equitable. When we look at fiscal year 2023 with 32.5 positions, and again, this is to satisfy that number that was on the previous screen, again, 1.5 million. While we know we can't come and ask for it all in one total bank because we have to phase this in, we're also looking at meeting the needs of approximately 14,000 children. That number continues to fluctuate. When we presented this chart before, we were at about 15,000, but we have lost children for varying reasons over the years. When we look at our base student cost is $2,516 to meet the needs of all of our students. And as you can see with the chart that's in front of you, that base student cost has decreased and increased over the years. So at this time, with the information that I just shared, Ms. Miller is going to make sense of those numbers and of the asks as it relates to the positions that we are seeking to add to our bank of support for our children. And Ms. Miller will take the mic at this particular point in time.
Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. Good evening. I want to discuss first with you the projected revenue increase that we're anticipating this year. As we discussed already with our Board of Trustees, there are currently two versions of the budget that are out in legislation right now, and they vary significantly. The first one, calling the original version, that was the first version that we presented to the board, and that was the original House version. There's been two subsequent versions since then, but it's only varied about $600,000, so I have not updated our original figures. But in that original version, this was going to be the new funding method. Dr. Martin Knox talked about base student costs. That's going away. With the new version from the House, it would be the new funding method, which is not based on per pupil, it's based on a teacher to student allocation. And with the House version, they were going to increase our state revenue by $9.7 million. Also, our Tier 3 revenue was going to increase $1.3 million, and then I did increase the local tax millage here by a growth factor, coming up with an increase of $11.3 million. Then on the Senate version, they varied significantly. You can see the state revenue was $9.7 million and it went down to $5 million. That's because under the House version, they were going to give a $4,000 increase to teachers. Under the Senate version, they dropped that by 50% down to $2,000, therefore the revenue decreased. So you can see the total revenue for the Senate was $6.6 million, so there was a $4.7 million variance between the two budgets. Where will the budget come in? It's going to come in somewhere between those two figures. They're going to compromise. There was a committee that met last week. We did get numbers, or we've got information late Friday that was saying that the latest information said that the House proposal of sending all aid to classroom and teacher pay increases funds the district using the new formula. What's happening with the Senate version is they're drawing a line in the sand saying, we'll give you your old money that you had before, and anything new is going to be with the new formula. Well, now with the modified version, they are going back to using the whole formula, the new formula. Also, the Senate proposed the weightings. You still have to have a weighted pupil unit that compares our district to other districts across the state and takes our population of students and weights those against the other districts. And so the Senate is going to propose those weightings. So we do not have the amounts yet because they are still working through those details. And then also they are going back to the increase of $4,000 for teachers. So House original was $4,000, Senate was down to $2,000, now it's back to $4,000. We'll find out tomorrow perhaps. They are meeting tomorrow. Maybe they'll pass a budget tomorrow, and we should hopefully know figures after that. Once they pass that, it still has to go to the State Department of Education, and again, because of that weighted pupil unit and comparing to all districts, they have to do a whole calculations. I would anticipate that we would have numbers maybe next week or the last week of June, which is why our Board of Trustees passed a continuing resolution, because we will not have the figures by June 30th and have it advertised for 15 days as required per law. Now, please keep in mind that Sumter School District is paying above the state salary schedule, minimum salary schedule. The state only funds up to their schedule. So if we do an increase, that means locally, we need to come up with that money if it's already above what the state has on their salary schedule. And with the new funding method, they also still use the 75-25%. That means the state share is your total entitlement in the calculation minus your local responsibility, which is the 25%. Again, I think the number's gonna come somewhere in between these two numbers of what the revenue is gonna be. So that's talking about what our revenue is going up. Now let's talk about the mandated expenditures. So while it was great that we were gonna get 11.3 million with the House version, our expenses were gonna go up 10.5 million. So we were gonna benefit under the House version because you can see 11.3 is greater than 10.5. However, if you look at the Senate version, they're gonna give us 6.6 million, but our expenses are gonna go up 7.8 million. So your expenses go up more than your revenue. So again, variances between the two budgets, again, it'll come somewhere in between. We don't have those final figures yet. All right, we talked about mandated increases. These are our necessary expenditure increases. We all know prices have increased. Fuel is a great example of that. All our vendors, I'm sure the city or the county is facing it too, all the prices have gone up. So we know we have about $690,000 we need to add just to our operating budget just to maintain what we're doing now. We also have an Office of Academic position of $114,000. We have special services, there's 2 positions in there, $207,000. They're required positions that you have to have per state, and these are required positions so that we stay in compliance. And then we also wanted to include a step increase, just like the county wants to for your non-certified staff. We're mandated to do it for the teachers, but to do a non-certified staff increase, that's approximately $630,000. Now keep in mind, that step and that increase is only about 1 to 2% for our staff. Inflation went up 4.7%. So we're giving them an increase that will not even offset the increase in the cost of living. And this is where we're talking about the cost of living. Teachers, it's always a mandated law, so they have received their step every year. But look at 2020, there was no increase for the staff. 21, no increase for the staff. Fiscal year 22, we did do a step, which was 1 to 2%. The county did give us 2 mills last year, equates to approximately $400,000 perhaps of what we received, but it did cost us $600,000 to give that increase. So it did go towards that. It did not cover it fully, but it did go towards that. Lastly, we have the allowable millage increase. We calculated it here, going back, looking a couple of years. I ran this through the Department of Revenue, and we are allowed to request 10.9 mil. Our board has decided that is what the request is. And then just using an average value of a mill, let's just call it $189,000 per mill, that would be about $2 million. Dr. Martinoff showed you the request over the 3-year period. It was about 1.5 each year. We haven't received that. We still need those positions. So again, any of the millage that we receive would go towards those staff and those positions that are needed. And with that, Dr. Martinoff.
So let me again preface with saying thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. And as you can see, our presented budget is about people. It's about people that will contribute to the development of those 3 goals that we presented at the beginning of the presentation, which all benefits our children. And ultimately, it benefits our community. So I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to present, and thank you for your continued support of Sumter School District as we better the lives of our community.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. White?
Was there any consideration given to, like some school districts did, the difference between the House and Senate version? I know that some school districts were planning their request based on the House version versus the Senate version. Is that the process that y'all went through?
Unfortunately, we're in a situation where we need to know what revenue we're going to receive before we can commit to what we're going to project. That's why we have the 2 amounts that are budgeted. One includes the $4,000, which is in the House, which we would love to give, but we cannot commit to that if we do not know what the final revenue amounts are going to be. And then the $2,000, the figure for the Senate is for the $2,000 increase.
So that would be a yes, it did factor in.
It absolutely
the
did factor
request.
into our request,
Okay.
and, yes, sir.
So were you aware that the budget conference report has been adopted by the
Yes, that's
conference committee?
proviso 1.3 by the committee, which was those 3 bullet items that I talked about with the 4,000. And we just got that information late Friday, and I'd already provided the board packet to our board of trustees for the board meeting midweek last week before that.
So then you are aware that the House version was chosen, so
The
the
4,000.
district would get the higher amount, which would be, I assume, somewhere around $11 million.
Yes, and it'll cost us about 12 or 10.5 million. And remember, we have another 1.6 million of necessary items that we need to include just to continue operation. Then also those positions that Dr. Martinox has requested the past 3 years.
And so my understanding is that you'll also receive $2 million in new growth.
We have worked on the percentage of the new growth. We were using a 1% figure that was provided originally. It did go up to a 1.5%. And that is the 300,000 that I included in the figure. I was delayed in getting reports that I needed to do my calculations, so we do have the 300,000 in there, and we are just waiting. I don't have any additional reports to finalize the projection of the value of the mill, so I used an average of 189,000.
So can you also tell me if you have built in anything to upgrade the programs at rural schools like Rafting Creek, rural schools like Ebenezer, in terms of programs, academic programs, athletic programs?
No, sir, these are just to continue operation that we currently have.
So no new programs for Rafting Creek.
No, sir.
So are you aware that there is a drastic imbalance between schools that are in the city limit and schools that are in the rural area? And it all comes down to funding. For instance, at Alice Drive Middle School, they have 2 counselors. Furman has 3 counselors. Chestnut Gulch has 2 counselors. Hillcrest has 1. Ebenezer has 1. Bates has 2. R.E. Davis, 1. That's just one category. We could go further and talk about guidance secretaries. Alice Drive, yes. Furman, yes. Chestnut Gulch, yes. Hillcrest, yes. Ebenezer, yes. Bates, yes. R.E. Davis, no. They have a attendance clerk that does the records, and a school counselor that handles everything else. We can talk about career specialists. R.E. Davis, no. But all the other schools, yes. STEM program. Alice Drive, nationally accredited STEM school. Article in the paper. Bates, yes. R.E. Davis, they offer 1 STEM course. Orchestra and strings. Alice Drive, yes. Furman, no. Chestnut Hills, no. Bates, yes. Where I'm going with this is that the schools in my district, the schools in Ms. McGaney's district, there's not a balance. The programs that exist at Alice Drive, at Bates, they are not the same programs that exist at rural schools like Rafting Creek and R.E. Davis. And so what happens is parents choose to send their kids to schools that have these academic programs, which is why the enrollment is low. But if the district funded these schools with the same kinds of programs that the inner city schools have been funded with, you would see the enrollment change. And as a council member, you know, I have to make sure that I respond to my constituents, and what my constituents tell me is that there is a major imbalance. And what I hear you telling me is that this will not be addressed in your request. Is that correct?
So let me ask for a point of clarification, because as you were running through the list, you were talking about positions as opposed to programs. The question that was posed, if I interpreted it correctly, it was about program changes. The programs that you mentioned are actually courses that are offered at those schools, and they're actually opportunities offered at all of our schools, but they're contingent upon staffing. And staffing is contingent upon student enrollment. So while we're looking at I'll just take the counselors that you mentioned for an example. They're based on a national standard that is developed for the National Council of Counselors that says that each school that has a student enrollment of 0 to 200 to 300 has a counselor, and the numbers continue to increase. When you're looking at the schools that you've mentioned, you're comparing them, but it's based on student enrollment in the allocation. So when I spoke to you earlier about the $2,516, that's a per pupil allocation, it is again based on the number of students that are enrolled in those schools. When we look at the allocations, that's why we have the numbers in that previous screen about the 85.6 positions that we're seeking, so that we can make sure that even if we are meeting those standards in terms of enrollment in those positions that are allocated at those schools, that we wouldn't have to use those particular ratios, if you will, and we can over support our schools. But when the numbers are dictated by student enrollment, that's what you will get. It's not about a variance in schools that we're overlooking them. It's based on the student enrollment. When we're talking about STEM, all of our schools have the opportunity to offer STEM. It goes back again to those positions that I pointed out that we need as a school district to ensure they have an allocation within their enrollment to ensure that those courses could be offered. So it's not that we're not giving our students opportunities. It all goes back to staffing, which is why we're here today.
So then I'll go back to my original question. If you have the staffing, are you telling me that Rafton Creek is going to look like Alice Drive? Is that what you're saying?
And so what I am saying to your response is, while we're talking about Rafton Creek and Alice Drive, they're two different schools and they have two different enrollments. Again, Alice Drive is about 900, Rafton Creek is at about 300. So
But
they're
with
two
the new
different
lines,
schools.
With the new lines, Rafton Creek's enrollment is going to double.
But we haven't done that yet. So right now we're going on where we are. And so when that enrollment shifts, if we have those allocated positions, which is what brought us here this evening, we'll be able to, or shall I say Dr. Wright, will be able to allocate those positions equitably.
So I heard you say we will be able to, but that's not telling me that this is going to happen.
Because
And
again,
that's what I need to hear.
it's
That's what my
contingent.
constituents need to hear.
It's contingent upon student enrollment. We allocate staff based on student enrollment. We allocate staff based on the classes. And so what our principals do when they're building their schedules, they look at student interests, they look at student needs, they look at feedback from their communities, and they build their schedules based on what the needs have been. We have courses that we have to offer, and there are some courses that we don't have to offer. What I would like is for all of our children to have access to, as you talked about the orchestra. But when we're looking at, we're sharing teachers across schools, because again, we need the allocation to help support those efforts. If you recall, we actually had a recovery plan that was put in place where we had to reduce 33 teachers. We had to freeze 33 positions. Within those 33 positions, we could very well have a full-time or an FTE over at Rafton Creek to offer orchestra. But at this time, their numbers don't dictate that, and or the interests aren't there. But I do believe that every child needs to have access to everything that you mentioned. I just wanted to make sure that we had clarity in programs, which you started talking about positions as opposed to programs, and then you began to talk about actually a process. STEM is a process, not a program. And so making sure we offer students those opportunities. When you talk about Alice Drive being nationally accredited, again, it goes back to the leadership. They've applied for that. The district didn't give them that. They applied for that and they worked toward it. It is not dictated that they do that. So when we begin to compare, we need to make sure we take into account student enrollment, staffing availability, and the goals that are dictated by the principal that are aligned to the district's goals. And so that's why you have the variance.
I'm not sure you addressed my initial question about Rafton Creek's population doubling and whether or not these things would follow. I mean, that's pretty clear cut.
It sure is. And so,
it's a yes or no.
And so my answer, I thought it did, but my answer is it's contingent upon student enrollment, and we have not changed lines to determine what that enrollment will look like. And again, moving forward, if those numbers do increase, then staffing will have to be adjusted to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our children.
So let's move to R.E. Davis for a second. R.E. Davis College Preparatory Academy. So a college preparatory academy, in my mind, separates the school from just a regular school because it's a college preparatory academy. But when I look at R.E. Davis Preparatory Academy, I notice that they don't have some of the things that basic schools have. For instance, they don't have a football stadium. And my understanding is that the district has had the money to purchase the stadium, purchase the land, and it has not happened. And this conversation has gone on for 3 years. Is that a staffing issue as well?
It is not, and actually that process for the stadium has been in place for 5 years. And so the monies that were allocated for that process are still sitting in the account where it was. We've gone through the process of looking at land to make sure that we can adhere to that. And so we have not negated the needs of that community because of a promise, if you will, using the language that was made. So it's not been 3 years, it's been 5 years that we've been having the conversation. And first and foremost, when we go to build a stadium or something of that nature, we have to take into account student safety. So it's not just putting a stadium in place. And a stadium is not contingent upon college preparatory. It's about the way in which instruction is delivered and the courses that are offered to our children.
Absolutely, but you would think if it is a college preparatory academy, it would be set apart from all the other schools, and it appears that it's inferior in a number of ways. I remember when the kids first went over there, they didn't even have lockers. And I recall the NAACP reaching out to the school board to raise this issue. Subsequent to that, the lockers appeared. There was only one dressing room for sports. Kids had to dress in the classroom. I don't know if that's been addressed yet or not, but these are all issues. And when you identify a school as a college preparatory school, I mean, to me, it should have all of those things, including the academic component, including the sports component. And I really don't understand why it would take 5 years to orchestrate putting a stadium down there for the football field. And if in fact it does take 5 years to do that, then maybe the right decision would have been not to move those kids to an elementary school. Maybe they should have stayed at Maywood that had all of these things. I'm just pointing out the differences in rural schools and city schools. And my folks call me and they point this out to me. And so I'm pointing it out to you, and you're asking us to make an allocation. And my folks are asking me, is this allocation gonna improve Rafton Creek? Is it gonna improve R.E. Davis? Is it gonna improve Ebenezer? And it's not just the academic piece. It's the comprehensive piece. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I'm trying to get some assurance that all of these things will be addressed. And I'm not sure I've gotten a positive answer, so I'll give you the opportunity to explain a little more.
So with you mentioning the NAACP, we've had numerous meetings with the NAACP to show the progress that has been made with R.E. Davis. You're mentioning the decision to put the students at that building. Prior to my arrival, I can only address where we are and how we've moved forward. You talked about the lockers. My first meeting that I attended with the NAACP in the community, lockers were in the building the next week. So when there are things that are brought to my attention and we have funding sources, and I always tell my staff, we're not going to allow money to dictate what we offer to children. Those things that were needed were done in the immediate. And so again, that was initially when I entered into Sumter School District. We continue to build on what it is that we offer all of our schools. So for example, one of the items that was mentioned when we met with the NAACP was the lack of security. We gave them an SRO. All of our schools didn't have an SRO at that particular point in time. When we talked about classrooms and reconfiguration and looking at the organizational method by which children were educated in that building, I went into the building and I worked very closely with the principal to ensure that our students weren't cross-pollinating within the hallways, because that was a concern, that we addressed additional support. We added an additional assistant principal. We've added additional staffing to support those students, even though the numbers didn't dictate it. So there has been work done to support R.E. Davis and that community, but more importantly, the children. And so when we're looking to make sure that all of our kids have what it is that they need, I can't just focus in one area. I have to look at the school district as a whole. So when you stated earlier, rural schools versus city schools, we're one school district. We're Sumter School District. So I have to look at it from a more macro perspective to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of 14,000 plus children. And so while your points are very valid and the concerns of our parents are very valid, we are continuing to work to make progress to ensure that no child is receiving minimal or mediocre instruction in a mediocre facility. We've continued to add and continue to do what is right by children throughout the years. So as you share with us the concerns that have been brought to you, we've talked about those and we've addressed those and we've continued to make progress. But as I hear, it's almost like no progress has been made at all, and that we've negated the needs of that community. And that's not correct. That is unfair. We've continued to move forward to meet the needs of our children.
Can you tell me when the stadium down at R.E. Davis will be addressed?
We've had conversations, and I'm not at liberty to go into those conversations because they've been executive conversations within our meeting with our board of trustees. There are a lot of factors that go into the development of a field. And so again, I will say to you, looking at student safety is key, but staff have continued to work, and the board and I have had conversations in an executive session about moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burns, Chair. I have a finance question. I guess maybe Jennifer, she's smiling at me now.
So you guys see me move?
No, ma'am. Not at all. You got a slide up here, and, I guess it's retirement for 800,000. I just caught it because my screen doesn't work, so apologize for that. And health 900,000 increase. All right, was that the 30% that you're having to carry, or is that 100%?
That's the percent we have to carry. Our
30%,
retirement,
okay.
the health insurance, that retirement is the full increase that we have to cover, and then the health insurance is actually 1.8 million, but that's just a 6-month period because that's on a calendar.
So the state's picking up 70% of that this year.
Right, and again, the revenue numbers reflect what the state is covering, and these are the expenditures we have to have. So the state will give us 11.3 million, but our expenses are going to go up 10.5 million.
Okay. So what's the new funding? Okay, that's 11.3 million, somewhere around that. So after talking with the budget committee today for the House, his comments to me were y'all were getting $5 million for teacher raises. There's some like health and fitness, reading coaches 800,000. I guess you had that list. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And he said it comes down to about a 1.5 to $2 million of money that's not earmarked for anything.
And what they're not mentioning is there's EIA funding in separate funds. And they're rolling those all up into the general fund, and we have about 2.5 million of expenditures in those funds that we now have to put into the general fund. So yes, we will receive more revenue, but our expenses also go up.
Okay. Okay. Get different information. I'll call back and talk to him. I mean, I'll talk to you personally, but I'm getting different information.
I understand on the report that you see the full dollar amount.
No, I actually talked to the budget analysis for the state, education. I called him personally. So, I mean, I didn't see anything. I'm going by his word, okay, and your word, of course. I mean, I'm taking both of your words. I want to make sure I'm on the same page, apples to apples, that's all.
Yes, sir.
And of course, he's saying $2 million is free and clear above your cost, that's what he's telling me. And you got another $1.5 million growth this year for the value of the meal with the 4% value. So that's what I'm saying. You got, if this is correct, you're getting $3 to $4 million increase on top of what you had last year. So I'm just saying that's what I'm getting my information from. So she answered my question. Thanks for answering. Any other questions or comments from council?
Yeah,
Okay,
you go back to the slide when you had those, expenses in the teacher, can you break that 6.3 million down? What?
Yeah, what's that?
That is just taking the $4,000 from the House version. That's to give everybody that's on the teacher scale $4,000. That includes their benefits as well. That is their retirement that would go up and the FICA, the taxes we have to pay on that. So it's the salary plus
How
that.
many teachers?
We have 992 actual teachers, but it's not just teachers that are on the salary scale. You also have, what are some of the examples? Guidance counselors are on the salary schedule, principals. There are other people that are on the teacher scale that because they're already on the teacher scale, you have to give them that increase too, but they don't get included in that allocation from the state because they're not certified teachers.
And I may add, when we're looking at school budgeting, 90% of the school's budget or the district budget is allocated towards staffing and benefits. And so when we're looking at different steps, as Jennifer said, or Ms. Miller said earlier, we automatically give teachers a step every year. It's also the additional support staff, our drivers, our food service, our building service, that we're also looking to make sure that we include them in this increase, especially with the cost of living increase.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've been sitting here patiently and listening to what is being said. Let me ask you, either one of you, how many meals are you asking for?
So based on dialogue with our board of trustees, 10.9.
10.9. You have justification for 10.9 meals?
So what we've done is we factored in over the years what the millage increase that is allocated to the school district or that could be allocated to the school district and looking at those numbers, and that is the complete number at this particular point in time. It's 10.9 mils. And if you look at the chart, I've now put the chart back up on the board. If you look at the millage increase over the years, that's where we are at this particular point in time. Last year, you were gracious enough to give us mills, and so that's why that 10.9 is there, because we've satisfied some of that over the years.
So the money you received from this 10.9 mils, you will apply it, you have a place where you're gonna apply it for betterment of the district, right?
Yes, sir, it's for people.
For people. Okay. For many years, I fought hard to try to get schools the millage that they were entitled to. And I am glad that Dr. Hilton, in comments to the item, he mentioned in there that they were gonna ask for 10.9 mils because they wanted all of the money that they are entitled to. He used the word entitled. As you know, the law, South Carolina Act 388, dictates how many meals each school district will receive annually. And that decision is made by the South Carolina Department of Revenue, Human Affairs, or Physical Affairs Department. They make that decision. And it's based on population growth, CPI, as well as your cost of living. However, this body has rejected you for many years. Gave you nothing. Nothing. In 2017, when you came and asked for money, this body turned you down and gave you nothing. 2018, they gave you nothing. 2019, they gave you nothing. For 4 years, they gave you nothing. But the law, Act 388, says you are entitled to these meals. Now, there are some winners and there are some losers. And the way I look at this is that when you are being denied money that the law says you are entitled to, and the students do not benefit to improve their education based on this money, they are the losers. And they are moderate to low income students and families that are in your school district. As you know, you have about 8 schools that are Title I schools because of low income. But you also have 6 schools that have been identified as failing schools, priority 1 schools, that have been taken over by the South Carolina Department of Education because of their proficiency in scoring. Sadly, 4 of those failing schools are elementary schools. That means that we are not even giving low-income children a good basic education. We're not achieving that. But when you come before this board and you ask for money and you are rejected by this board, that sends a message. Who are the winners and who are the losers? Well, you know what the law says and why the law was created. And I don't think the people in here know why South Carolina Act 388 was created. South Carolina Act 388 was created for the wealthy people in this state, not low to moderate income people, the wealthy people. It was created because of the assessment on taxes on their homes, their property, was going up, and the salary that they was getting was not matching what they were covering. So a lot of them were being priced out of their homes, the wealthy people in this state. So in 2006, the General Assembly, which was predominantly Republican, decided to help out these people by taking the school millage and money, taxing off of their private homes. And they said that they were going to put it on businesses. But they also passed a penny tax too to help out. Well, that went good. The people are still in their homes. They are benefited by not paying taxes in this county. They're still in their home. In other words, they're having their cake and eating it too because they're not paying taxes either. But who are the losers? The poor kids in our school district, because they don't get the money to help them. Now, why do county council keep denying them that money? And I'll tell you why. And people probably don't know. Because there are schools that have fiscal autonomy, where they don't have to go through a middle body like us to get their money. 27 schools have fiscal autonomy. There are more progressive school districts too. Charleston, Aubrey, Georgetown, Greenfield, Spartanburg. Those are progressive counties that don't go through a school board. But 25 have no authority. And out of those 25, 20 have to go through their school board to get the money. And out of those 20, a lot of them are low income schools. Clarendon County, Lee County. Those are the ones. But why do we refuse them? I asked that question. So I called this attorney up at the South Carolina Attorney General's office, and I said, what is that in there? Because I'm thinking about, why don't we sue these districts, or you sue for not getting your money? And this individual looked into the law and he said, because of a word in there that says the school boards may give them the money. That single word, may, which means they may give it to them and they may not. And that's what this board has been doing. They have not been giving you the money for the last 5 years that you are entitled to by South Carolina law, Act 388. And that's a disgrace. Because like I said, there are winners and there are losers. The losers are the low-income kids in our public schools, and the winners are the middle, upper-class people who are not paying any taxes on their business and not even paying any taxes on their home, so they're having their cake and eating it too. And that's sad. That's sad. But we'll see what happens, because this body is going to have to decide how many meals they're going to give you. Now, there's rumor out there that you, Dr. Knox, made an agreement that all you want is 2 meals. You want 2 meals this year, last year, 2 meals this year, 2 meals the following year. That's all you want. Now, at the same time, I'm fighting for you, and hear your school board, your budget come up and say, we need $600,000 to give the non-teachers, cafeteria workers, maintenance people, the cost of living increase that they hadn't had for 2 years. Okay? You came up and put that out to us. That's what you want. But at the same time, there's an agreement on the table saying all you want is 2 meals. I don't know what's going on, but I'm fighting for it. Okay? I'm fighting for it. And maybe it's because you got to the point and said that something is better than nothing. Because you were getting nothing for 4 years, and you probably said, if I get 2 meals, at least we're getting something. And that's sad, because all you got was 15% of the money that you were entitled to by law. That's sad. And this body has been doing the students and the education of the students and the low-income students in this county. This body has been a disservice to them. But not only this body, the Sumter County Legislative Delegation is complicit in not giving you the money. They are complicit in not giving you the money because they have the power. 4 have the power to give you fiscal autonomy. All it takes is 4. If 4 of the 7 decide to give you fiscal autonomy, all they have to do is ask for it, and they're going to get it, because the other people are not going to even get involved, because they don't want, when it happens to them, they don't want anybody getting involved in this. Now, 2 people on our delegation are also members of Clarendon County delegation. Okay? That's Senator Kevin Johnson, Representative Kimberly Johnson, his daughter, and Representative Caesar McKnight from King Street. They make up the Clarendon County Legislative Delegation. When Kevin Johnson introduced a bill to consolidate the school districts, and it was approved by the governor and signed into law, that bill also said that in 2024, that Clarendon County will have fiscal autonomy. You see, so they can do it. Our legislative delegation can do it. And that's why I say they're complicit in this district not getting the money that the South Carolina law, Act 388, says they are entitled to. And that's sad, because they're winners, they're losers, and the losers are the poor, low-income kids in Sumter County, and the winners are the middle and upper class people who are not paying taxes. I yield. That's it.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
So, Mr. Bajan, let me just first of all thank you for always being passionate and advocating for the children of Sumter School District as a whole. I just wanted to bring a point of clarification and thank you for having the dialogue with me. But I've known of nothing of such an agreement where I'd ask for 2 meals. And I'm going to be satisfied or complacent. When we come before you to ask for support because we need it, not because we want something. And so I will come and I will ask with the support of the Board of Trustees as well as looking at the numbers to determine what amount of money will help us satisfy. Because every day we play catch up. We're trying to play catch up. And so for a point of clarification, I think where it has come in is the initial ask from the school district was whatever support you can provide. And I do believe that was my request in 2019, whatever support you can provide. The second request that we came in with for the year 2020 was we provided you with a phase-in approach. We asked for a specific amount and then we said we could do it over years. But I just wanted to make sure it is clear. I have never made an agreement with anyone over any amount of meals or any amount of money to sacrifice what's needed for my children.
Let me refer you to this article. Front page of the item, article dated Friday, June the 3rd, 2020, okay? This article says, McCain, Bacon's accusation last year stopped meeting with the school board because I made the accusation that your school board was forced to take 2 meals, okay? And they said it wasn't true, but I talked to other board members who said it was, okay? Now, here's the thing. In this article, it says that you made an agreement personally with Chairman McCain that asked for 2 meals last year, this year, and the next year. It's in this article, okay?
Yes, sir, I understand, but I will just share with you a point of clarification record. I did not make an agreement with anyone.
Okay, and you know, Dr. Martin, I'm glad you clarified that with me because I did not really think you really did that.
No, sir, I did not.
Okay, and I appreciate that you cleared that up with me because I was really concerned that here I am fighting my best to give the kids their money and you were behind my back, stabbing me in the back. I'm glad you cleared that up with me.
So as I
Thank
stand
you.
here before you without the title superintendent in my name, I don't do anything behind anybody's back, nor staff. We will have professional conversation and we can come to a place where we would agree to disagree, but we'll do so professionally and amicably and continue to stay focused on our children. And I'm here to tell you that that is inaccurate. No one made an agreement with me nor with our board for 2 meals.
And I appreciate you clearing that up because really, in my heart, I knew that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I came to respect you, because I saw how you fought fighting for the kids in this district.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Again, I'm finished, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just to clear the air, and Councilman, I appreciate your comments. I just think a lot of this could have been cleared up if we had followed the procedure that we put in place last year. The procedure that I recommended, council agreed to it, school board agreed to it, to meet 2 times a year, to have workshop sessions. And at the beginning of the budget process, I reached out to officials at the school district. And I said to them, the process is beginning, request the meeting so we can have this dialogue. The letter never came. I requested the letter and I requested to be copied on the letter. And what I said to these folks is that I will make sure those meetings happen. the letter never arrived. The next time I heard about the school district's budget, it was a request for 10.9 mils. And that is not the way to do business. What Councilman Baton talked about last year, fighting for money, it was he and I fighting for that money. And that's when I made the motion and council agreed to have those 2 workshops. And they have not occurred. And as I said, I reached out to school board officials. I won't call any names. They know who they are. No letter followed. No request for a meeting followed. No request for a work session. And that is just not how we should treat our kids. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment on that, please. I understand where you're coming from, Brother Washington. And you reached out to the school board or members of the school board or chairman, whatever. And they did not respond to you the way you said they should have or you asked them to. But you know, it's a two-way street. This body has a school district liaison person. That person should have been reaching out to you, the school, to set up the meetings that you said we wanted. But you know what? It never happened. And the reason why it didn't happen, and I'm looking at this and saying that because of Baton's accusation, we're not going to have the meeting. It's right here in the paper. And who wrote the article? Oh, here he is right there, Bruce Miller. He wrote the article. Okay? It's right here. So it's a two-way street. Yes, you reached out, and I'm glad you did. But we have always been reaching out with our liaison to the school. But we didn't do it this time. We didn't do it. So let's not just say that the school's at fault. We are at fault too.
Okay, Councilman from Highway 378, they got a phone call from me saying, this is what's going on. Send a letter. I'll handle it from there. Didn't happen.
I know, that's why
So this conversation about a liaison and this person and that person, they were contacted by a sitting council member.
Okay.
Saying the train is moving, send a letter. I'll handle it. Did not happen.
Let me ask you something, Brother Washington. Why did you want those meetings?
So that we could have a comprehensive understanding of any request that the school district would make. I thought it was important to have 2 work sessions a year to avoid what is happening right now.
That's right. You wanted to have those meetings because you wanted this body to get with the school board body so that there will be no misunderstandings when it came to them coming before us asking for their bill.
And if that had happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
But like I said, if someone's putting out the fact that meals have already been decided, maybe that's why it never happened.
Mr. Chairman. So in the world of education, and I do believe it's also used in the business environment, we do something called a SWOT analysis, where you examine your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And what I don't want to occur is the threats of having forward-moving opportunities to do what's best and what's right for children. And so while the dialogue has been very meaningful, what I don't want us to do moving forward is to live in the past. We need to move forward and continue to do what's best for children. And so I appreciate the opportunity to engage with you with meaningful questions, with meaningful opportunities to engage in conversation with you. But as we step away from the podium, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to present our needs for Sumter School District for the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Dr. Mark Knox. You came here, you did an outstanding job. I wish you the best in your future endeavor. May God continue to bless you, because you have a heart for children. Thank you.
What's the pleasure, council?
I suppose we just take it for information, make a decision in a month.
All the information comes from the state.
Yeah, I think tomorrow we're gonna have that information, so I think everybody would rather know exactly what they're getting before we make a decision.
Got a motion? Take this as information. Have a second.
Is that your motion, Councilman Baker?
Yes.
I'll second.
I didn't know we needed them.
It's already been seconded.
All right. Got a motion and a second to take this information and make a decision in the near future. All in favor?
For clarification, there were two items. Number one was the presentation, and number two was the actual, resolution. So which one are we addressing?
This is the resolution. All in favor? Next item on the agenda is first reading of ordinance number 22-977. All right, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chair, members of council, you recall a couple months ago, we entered into a lease with FTC so they can construct a cell tower on some property the county owns on westwestern Market. The county library was a CP&L building we acquired some years ago, and so they have the lease, and in fact, they built the tower. Now they need to get some electricity to the tower, so two progress would like to get an easement from the street back to the cell tower so they can provide electricity to the tower. That's what this is all about. So you have an ordinance to approve the easement. You have a draft of the easement. This is actually the second draft. There's a little bit of work to be done. For example, I need to know what an incumbent local exchange carrier is. And I want to add to this the fact that it's been approved or will be approved by ordinance 22-977. So when the document's recorded, people coming behind us will know it was in fact properly approved. But we'll get those worked out between now and time of third reading. I just asked the first reading, we can move it forward.
You will have a survey showing the
We're probably going to have a, we'll probably use the same survey plat that FTC used, and it'll probably just be drawn in on that plat by some engineer.
I'm just concerned as to where the easement's going to be.
Right. The sketch will show. No. You should have seen the first. You should have seen the first draft of the easement. It's been tailored substantially. Nevertheless, the picture will show the location of the underground power lines they intend to install.
And we'll have that by second.
I plan to, yeah. I'm just waiting on them now.
More questions, Brian? Yes, move approval first reading.
So,
Move to proper second that we have first reading of ordinance number 22-977. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? On the old business, third reading of ordinance 22-974.
Chairman, while our clerk is, going to load this up for me, I would like to go ahead and officially notify council and the members of the audience that Mr. Bryan and I did not coordinate our outfits tonight. Purely unintentional. Just to make sure our chairman tried to jump in with us.
I'm not sure about the rest of y'all.
It's up there, but
Well, if
Jennifer
you
did
did,
it.
if you did, Mr. Administrator, then you guys are colorblind because your ties don't match.
He didn't read the bottom line of the memo. Thank you.
Hold on a second, I'm gonna put it on, try to put it on my machine. Just
Yes, right. Probably be done with it by the time they find it. That's fine. That's fine. Go ahead and start it. Let you know when we move forward. Mr. Chair, council members, good evening. Again, this is reading on first our capital bond ordinance. At our last meeting, we covered the details of the bond ordinance, and we'll go through that information again quickly. Next slide. Capital bond request. These are the items that we covered at our workshop. You can see that this represents the 15 mills that we have allocated in our county operating budget for capital purchases. You can see the items that are in the list. This is the funding source that we use for the sheriff vehicles in the largest single item. Also the rest of the county fleet you can see in there at 532. You also see that this is where we maintain most of our building upgrades at $506,000, and then IT is getting to be a bigger and bigger part of our capital purchases on an annual basis. And you can understand why it's become a very, very useful tool in our own operations. But what you see before you is again the $3.5 million bond, general obligation bond request representing the county's annual purchase. There are no changes, so from our last meeting.
Move third reading.
Second. Moved and properly seconded, we have third reading on ordinance 22974. Any discussion?
Just one comment, we'd love to see us get back to 2.5 by next year.
2.5 million.
Where we were for years. Just a comment.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Third reading passes. Third reading of ordinance 22973.
Mr. Chair, before we move on to our budget ordinance, I would like to remind council next slide. The other activities that we've got going on with this particular budget. You can see the $3.5 million that you just approved. We also have discussed using $3.8 million of the ARPA funds. We also are utilizing $181,500 of the road user. That's still in the budget. We understand that that decision will also be made very soon, but we are hoping for positive results from that over in Columbia Regional Assembly. We allocated a small portion from our solid waste fund, our infrastructure fund of $190,000, and then a one-time use from our fund balance for capital at the airport, which will be reimbursed over 4 years for $1 million. In total, $8,684,836. And again, I would remind council that was a $12 million request. But this is, again, already been decided and voted on by council. Early meeting, I just want to remind council of the bigger picture. Next item. This is specifically where we've allocated the additional ARPA funds, $3.8 million I mentioned just a few minutes ago to go support our county capital request. About $368,000 in personnel requests, and most of that related to the public defender's office personnel. Water utility infrastructure, that's to support our 2 water utilities at Westfield and Shiloh. This is anticipated to draw down additional dollars from Columbia through the rural
Authority, as well as the broadband infrastructure, allocating $1 billion to again draw down state dollars and federal dollars to try to provide quality broadband service throughout the entire county. And then the last category was $2.5 million allocated for additional roads, and for a total of the $10.3 million that we recently received. Next. Okay, now we're down to the budget ordinance. Just a quick reminder, we can see where we started at first, second. I'll just jump right to the third reading as proposed tonight. A balanced budget of $55,498,969. Again, balanced. You can see the bond. You can see the ARPA funding. Next slide. The key items that make this better budget work. We have revenues. We've proposed a $1 million increase to be offset with the local option sales tax credit factor. And we also propose to use $508,313 from our fund balance. Key expenditures, fortunately, we had no control. 18% increase in health insurance. You heard earlier that this is constant in all the government entities. This $465,000 represents half a year. We'll have the other costs associated in the next budget. 1% increase in retirement for $232,000. And then we do have built into this budget personnel changes, which include a 3% COLA for county employees for just over $800,000. Property and liability insurance increase of $301,000. We covered that in great detail at our last meeting, and an increase of $39,163 in individual department increases for personnel. Next. So, Mr. Chair, council members, this is the action we're requesting for third reading tonight on our county operating budget.
Any questions or comments?
Is this third reading?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for third reading.
Second.
No motion and a second to have third reading on ordinance number 22-973. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Third reading passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee reports. Mr. Byrd, Internal Affairs.
Mr. Chairman, Internal Affairs Committee met. All members present, and we took some lengthy actions. Bear with me. Let me start with the Airport Commission. There was a motion and second from the committee to reappoint Kyle Osteen, David Burns House, and Eliza Buxton to that commission. I have a motion and second from the committee.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
We have a motion second from the committee to reappoint Marcus Carson, Joseph Jefferson, Jay Britton, and Wayne Hogan to the Crystal Lakes Golf Course Advisory Board.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none.
All right. Development Board. We have a motion second to reappoint Mr. John Bradman, Mr. Jay Davis, Mr. Jess Williams to the Sumter County Development Board.
I have a motion and a second on those appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
We have a motion second to reappoint Landia Johnson to the Housing Authority.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
We have a motion second to appoint Barbara Bowman to the Irish Festival Committee.
I have a motion and a second. On that appointment, all in favor? All opposed?
All right, Library Board. Motion second to the following: reappoint Carol Allen, reappoint Randa Edmonds, to appoint new members: Brian Hilferty, Lenora Jackson, and Nancy Zibble to the Library Board.
I have a motion and a second on those appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
All right, we got a motion second to reappoint Ms. Tasha Gardner to the Litter Advisory Board.
I have a motion and a second for that appointment. All in favor?
fall asleep when we got it.
All right.
And leave. And last but not least, we, zoning board of appeals, motion second committee to reappoint Mr. Samuel Lowry.
A motion and a second on that appointment. All in favor?
That concludes the internal affairs report.
Okay, coming on to report from council members on meetings, trainings, and or conferences that you may have attended. Hearing none, monthly reports, Ms. Landry.
Council members, we have the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office, I apologize, monthly report in there. And also, I received the May monthly report today, and I've sent that to you all electronically, so that you would have both of them. And you have the monthly report for the Public Works Department, the monthly report in your packet. The Soil and Conservation District will be having a meeting, just a second, on the 16th, and they're asking council, it starts at 5 o'clock with the social, and then at 5:30 the meeting will begin. And they said that Representative Smith will be attending, and they would like to find out which council members will be coming so they can make sure they have space for you all. In addition to that, Grand Hill Missionary Baptist Church has invited not just Mr. McCain, but all the council members to their ministry in the marketplace on August the 12th through the 13th at Patriot Hall, and you all are welcome to attend. Tomorrow is the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, and that is in your packet. And just for employees only, and council members can attend on June 24th at 10 o'clock a.m. to noon. It's a probate court workshop, and you have material there that can help you with preparing wills and other things that pertain to the estate plan. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. Mr. Mixon, County Administrator's report.
Mr. Chair, just one quick item. I would like to take this opportunity to, thank council for your continued support of our county government and the work that we provide for citizens of Sumter County. And also like to recognize Mr. Rogers and also our finance team for the work that they've done in preparing our budget. And thank you again for your continued support.
Thank you, Mr. Mixon. Coming on to the public comment portion of our agenda. Any citizens desiring to speak are limited to no more than 3 minutes. All comments will be made from the chairman. Public comment section is now open. Anyone wishing to address council, please proceed to the podium. State your name for the record. Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Move for adjournment.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? We are adjourned.